In the summer of 1871, William Gilbert Grace scored 10 hundreds. People have scored hundreds before, it makes sense. But the player with the second most runs in that season averaged less than a third of what he did. And all the other batters made 700s in total. No one else even made two. At the age of 23, W.G. Grace outscored the rest of cricket combined. 8 years later, he became a qualified doctor. But Grace obviously was a controversial person. He was a misogynist, cheat, and a amateur. The man with the big beard has a flawed legacy everywhere except when it comes to batting. If we look at the greatest cricketers of all time, not just internationals, Grace would be an excellent case to be compared with the likes of Don Bradman and Garfield Sobers. His impact on the sport as a whole might be even bigger than either of them. He invented modern batting. And it may not sound revolutionary, but for 70 years, there were front foot and back foot players making a decision before the ball was bowled. Grace opened up batting by picking the right ball. But Test cricket starts after his peak. His record of 1,098 runs in 22 tests looks mediocre. But in the matches he played during the 1880s, when he was still young and very good, he was 78% better than any other top order players. For context, the only person with a greater ratio than him for a long period of time is Bradman. However, it is only from 11 matches. After that, he was still playing, but he'd already turned 40. He was actually 50 when he played his last match, and his peak was before Test cricket even began. His average in Tests is 32.3, and that's not going to sound awesome to any modern fans, but it does not tell you how great he is. Grace might average less than 40, but like many batters, that is only part of his story. Want to have live chats with me or just connect with other cricket fans on Discord that also enjoy my content, or a few AMAs? Maybe you want early podcast episodes or ad-free content, or want to receive my emailer. You can get all of this on our Patreon, plus a little bit of behind the scenes stuff as well. Huge thanks to everyone who has supported us on Patreon so far. You are all part of this channel's success. There are 20 batters with 5,000 test runs who average under 40. Alex Stewart is the only one who makes it to the 8,000 club. His career is absolutely fascinating. He plays in a weak English side and he keeps wickets for over 60% of the time, but not always consistently. His career average drops below 40 only in his final few matches. He has solid numbers when batting in the top three, and that's even when he was there as a keeper. But the magic number for Stewart is that he goes at 35 when keeping and 47 when not. His numbers, though, still hold up quite well compared to his teammates Michael Atherton and Nasser Hussain, who also make this list. There's a bunch of modern batters here as well. Dimith Karunaratne retired recently, and he was certainly one of the best openers for a period of time. He was never a star, so averaging a lot in this era was always going to be tough for him, but he was a very smart player. Ben Stokes almost inspires the idea of a list like this on his own. There are reasons he doesn't go at more than 40, but also, we know what he can do. He's a player of great knocks, but maybe not a great batter. Right after him is his Bazball partner, Brendan McCullum. He did eventually become better in the second half of his career. In the 2010s, he went at 44, but it was all the way down at 32 in the 2000s. Like Stewart, most of this was giving up the gloves. On the flip side is Johnny Bairstow, who averaged more when he kept wickets. He's a bit like Stokes because of his ability to play game-changing knocks. He was at the forefront of Bazball's beginning, showing his teammates how it was done once Stokes and co decided to play that way. But he also gets bowled an awful lot. And this piece is obviously about averages, but eras and pitches play a part as well. Two golden age Aussie batters followed by four modern proteas topped the match factor charts. It makes sense because pre-World War I was not an easy time to bat, and so if you make runs, you popped. The same for modern South Africans who also play on tough wickets at home. Three of these are openers: Victor Trumper, although he averaged 33 up top and 49 otherwise, Aidan Markram and Dean Elgar. But the overall match factor is often influenced by the strength of your bowling attack. It's part of the reason why we see these South African batters. We also want to see how good you are compared to your team's top 7 batters. It's a bit like looking at the percentage of runs scored, just in a slightly different manner. Habib Bashar is ranked first on this, followed by Brendan Taylor and John Reid. And that's despite the fact that the former Bangladeshi averaged just under 31. But he was nearly the sole batter for his team. It's okay to look at his overall number and think Bashir hooked his way into danger. But in truth, he would have batted further down the order in a stronger lineup and made a lot more runs. Instead, he just made all of Bangladesh's totals, which still wasn't much. Reed only averaged 33, but he was an all-rounder who should have batted at 5 or 6. Instead, he was mostly in at number 4, and the New Zealand team he played for had a weak top 3, meaning he was high up the order and in earlier than he ever should have been. The Kiwis did everything they could have to make his life difficult. Also, these guys never played in wins. They just batted with weaker players, trying to change the games as best they could, often just completely outclassed. Taylor and Bashar don't even get close to draws enough. Johnny Bairstow has the best match factor. And that is not something that you'd instinctively believe. He's more famous for the dramatic match-winning knocks, not scores on dead wickets. Yet Ben Stokes is the same. But maybe it tells us something, that they clearly like batting on pitches where taking 40 wickets is hard. And perhaps this extends to how they enjoy batting on good surfaces in the Bazball era. Another contemporary player here is Tom Latham. Now, he makes a lot more sense than the English batters because he at least profiles like an old-fashioned drawer of tests. And speaking of them, Atherton and Stewart are 1 and 2 in this category for the most runs in draws. They certainly contributed to a bunch of those in challenging times for England. Atherton is famous for his 185 against South Africa when Alan Donald tried to end him, and of course Sean Pollock was there as well. Alex Stewart batted for over 5 hours in an innings 7 times in draws. We also see here a couple of Indian players from the 1980s, Kapil Dev and Ravi Shastri. Although you can see here that Kapil Dev didn't actually do that well. Perhaps he was better suited for a result game. But modern players don't always even have the luxury of playing in many draws. And a lot of that is because of the wobble ball era. India, South Africa, and now Pakistan making their home wickets tough, the World Test Championship, and batters scoring quicker. And of course, there's no denying that modern players just aren't as well suited to saving tests in the same way, but they also rarely get the opportunity. In the old days, Victor Trumper was the king of result matches. He had such an impact in the games that Australia won, and his numbers were incredible even when they lost. And some of that would be his ability to just score on their wickets, which no one else could. Most of the modern day South Africans have barely played in draws. It's a pretty tough thing on their wickets. So while we see that Karunaratne has the most runs, Elgar, de Kock, and Markham really stand out here. And if your average is sub 40, making runs in games with a match on the line is a way to stay in the team. The term flat track bully has been taken over by stat padding of recent times. And the greatest batters of all time are genius at this. And we don't mean that in a bad sense. It is hard to get set in tests. Make as many as you can when you can. But these guys with sub 40 averages often just don't do that enough. And that explains their low overall marks. But it doesn't mean that many of them aren't important for their teams. Among batters with 1,000 runs in games where they received little support from their teammates, several players stand out with a match factor greater than 2. Wasim Raja, a number 6 or 7 for Pakistan, really stands out. He was known for playing shots on wickets that no one else could even stay in on. In 1976-77, as the West Indies were assembling their attack, it still had Colin Croft and Joel Garner in it. He made 517 runs in a series against them. Raja would get in, make crazy shots work, and then get out before changing his overall average. A player like Dilip Sardesai can easily be forgotten now, but he played an important role in India's win in the West Indies and England in 1971. Another old-timer here is Frank Woolley, who debuted for England before the First World War, but played his last test on the eve of the Second. His career overlapped with Jack Hobbs and Len Hutton, but he was an all-rounder who liked to hit the ball very hard. When he made an impact, it was felt. Sean Pollock is a lot more modern, and he's a fascinating player. He was really good when his team's top 6 batters couldn't make any runs. Having a player like that at 7 or 8 or even 9 on occasions is like a cheat code, especially as he also happens to be an all-time great with the ball. The most runs in these matches have been scored by Atherton at a match factor of 1.72. That is an extraordinary record. Atherton spent most of the 90s as a crash test dummy, especially once his back went. But this shows that when it was really tough, he got runs. He didn't average 40, but his main purpose in life was surviving England's dystopian period, one block at a time. Dhananjaya De Silva is a modern player like this, albeit in a completely different role. He doesn't make big runs, and he can be a very limited guy. But he does fight through collapses for Sri Lanka quite often. They might be able to find a high quality batter, but he's probably ideal down the order when you factor in his part-time bowling and his fielding. He's just a huge plus for them. There's still a chance he will average more than 40. Sri Lankan pitchers haven't been too bad of recent times. But even if he ends up below that, he's a very good player for their team. Warwick Armstrong was a legendary Australian captain, but his raw numbers don't always explain what he could do. But he was a tough cricketer who got the job done. Probably not a frontline batter, but one who found a way. And of course, a very famous recent version of this is Ajinkya Rahane. A near perfect example that your overall average can be shaded by your era, but your team still needs you. India's endlessly maligned middle order player had a match factor of 1.66 in these games. Compared that to 0.77 otherwise. Essentially, if his teammates made runs, he didn't, and vice versa. That explains why India stuck with him even when he started to struggle more. Rahane didn't average 40 in his tough era, but he made runs when his side couldn't, especially away from home. He averages 14% better than the other top 6 batters in 52 away tests, although obviously he was never the same batter in the second half of his career. However, he did manage to be India's top run getter in both the World Test Championship finals. Stuart Broad's dad and match referee Chris Broad has the highest max factor on the road. He was a weird batter who England never quite backed, but one who could clearly play, and he loved the Australian wickets. At the turn of the previous century, English batter Archie McLaren was exactly the same. He played 15 tests in Australia while going at 45, and he was barely much more than 30 across all English first-class cricket. Perhaps both of these guys were just born in the wrong country. And Larry Gomes from the West Indies was another player who could have done with a lot more matches in Australia. With his talent, it's incredible he never quite got his number past the 30. I know a lot of people won't like this video because the general consensus is that an average of 50 is great and 40 is meh. So if you come under that, you're not going to get a lot of respect. And for our book, 2 of the metrics we were counting was how many years players went at 50 plus, which we considered great, and 40 plus, which we considered good. It was no more or less important a metric than overall average. For us, one number just doesn't give us enough of an idea. And too many of these players are thrown away because people obsess over average alone. Clearly, the players here are limited, or something went on in their career. But that doesn't mean that they can't play. The best players under 40 should almost be specialists or high-end role players. Batters who go by their own internal logic, like De Kock, Raja, and McCullum, to score quick. Or those dead bat fellas. There isn't a complete ball-by-ball database. From what we have, there are some patterns here. Jeff Marsh, father of Sean and Midge, was dismissed after he faced more than 90 deliveries on average. His main skill in ODIs or tests was just not getting out, and he was like a poster boy for role players. John Wright's balls per dismissal mark is well above 100 from the available data. And he did that on Kiwi wickets, often painted in luminescent green for Richard Hadlee. They could really play out the new ball effectively. They never got the runs themselves, but they delayed everyone else's entry points, meaning that they were partly responsible for runs further down the innings. Although opening is the hardest, most teams wouldn't mind a number 3 that can offer a similar skill set. Sanjay Mandrake is one of the guys that's remembered more as a commentator, but he could really dig in for long periods, as could Asanka Gurusinghe. The balls really only start being recorded properly after 1991. Since then, Michael Atherton is numero uno, averaging nearly 100 balls per dismissal. Marvin Adapadu was picked in our Crick Picks draft on this very topic. He was an Asian opener who actually did better away from home. BJ Watling went from a failing opener to a lower order blocker. Grant Flower, who has to be in every single Good Areas video now, tackled the new ball for Zimbabwe in the 90s. He almost never made any runs, but my God, it was hard to get him out. And there is actually something to be said in Test cricket that you kind of want to be an extreme. Either bat for a long period of time and tire out the bowlers, or bat for a short period of time but make so many runs that you ruin all the plans of the fielding team. Kapil Dev smashed the ball in Tests, and that is often slept on a little bit. And like a lot of all-rounders, he was given the license, so he probably traded some of the runs from his average for the whacking. Richard Hadlee and Ian Botham were also fast scoring for their era, and the Indian wicketkeeper Farooq Engineer could also smash the ball. And part of the legacy of the 2 early Australian greats, Victor Trumper and Clem Hill, was that they were incredibly attacking, especially for their era. There were batters who went at 40 in their time, but bowling to these 2 back when most players barely hit the ball off the square must have been horrifying. 3 wicket keepers pop on this graph: Quinton de Kock, Sarfraz Ahmed, and Niroshan Digwella. Clearly, after Adam Gilchrist came on the board, wicketkeepers were more willing to bat in that attacking style. Think about Quinton de Kock. You get a disruptive keeper who scores really fast. the strike rate of 70. So a few runs off 40 is probably more than fine with him. It's something that most teams would be happy to trade off. Then there's Zach Crawley and Ollie Pope, two base bowlers who are always under massive scrutiny. Somewhere between them is the man himself, McCullum. We also see a lot more keepers and all-rounders who strike around 60. Essentially, if you can't make big runs, kill or be killed. As cricket fans, we can't help but fetishize high averages. The number of 50 just feels right. But in our list in the art of batting, we have two players under 40 and a load below 50 as well. To get a high mark in tests, a whole bunch of things need to line up for you. Good wickets, a scoring error, maybe being dropped on a flat pitch, a strong batting team around you, and the ability to make huge totals. There are incredible players for their teams who just don't get the numbers. On the other hand, you have someone like Alan Knott. He was one of the first keepers who could really bat. He added a lot of value just by being hard to dismiss and by making teams know that there was a world-class number 7 to go up against. In a 14-year career, he stepped up to bat high in the order when England needed it, was absolutely great with the gloves, and even came back to chip in after World Series cricket. And when the rest of the team failed, Knott was incredible. On the road, he averaged over 40 by some distance. He scored runs in the West Indies, Pakistan, and New Zealand. He went at 15 more runs away than in England. And when his team's top order failed on tours, there was Knott. This man didn't average 40, or even all that close. To dismiss him as a poor bat on one number is to misunderstand what a number 7 who can make runs on the road means to a side. The players here didn't average 50, or even 40, or sometimes even all that close to it. But they did great jobs for their teams regardless. Their average is only a fraction of what you need to know about them. Their story doesn't end with their average, it's just the beginning.